budgetary requests, and we're going to do that by looking at it in terms of goals. And we're going to demonstrate what work streams or expenses must be incurred in order to achieve those goals in 2023. And then third, we will finish with a budget recap summary. So starting with our 2022 accomplishments, this year we released 5 misconduct review reports. And I want to say that we created and made public a work plan at the beginning of 2022. And in this work plan, we committed to prioritizing community engagement and increasing work production. And these achievements are some of the ways that we followed through on those commitments from 2022. Specifically focusing on our misconduct case review reports that we were able to release this year. This is more reports than we've ever released before. We completed 5 misconduct case reports and we released these to the public. And in these reports, we were able to provide a final step to our overview, to our monitoring and oversight work. These reviews typically occur after the investigation is complete and any discipline that was followed through by the NOPD is considered finalized. These are comprehensive reviews and they examine the misconduct investigations that are completed by the NOPD. In order to complete these reports, we utilize a 2-tier review methodology. And we critically answer questions on the strength of the investigation, the potential violations of the Officer Bill of Rights, the state law, federal law, and any possible constitutional violations. We evaluate the appropriateness of the allegations that were raised by the misconduct investigation, and we determine if the appropriate employees were identified as accused employees for the misconduct. We assess if there were additional allegations or investigatory steps that could have been taken. We look at the individuals that were accused and we ask critical questions about their training and their practice, and we make recommendations on how to make those individual officers better officers moving forward. And finally, we provide risk assessments and policy and practice recommendations. I want to highlight that these case review reports are entirely separate and apart from the internal memos and our formal recommendations that we also provide to the NOPD. In 2022, we also submitted 81 complaint referrals to the Public Integrity Bureau for investigation. These complaint referrals are formal letters that include narratives of what allegedly occurred. We receive these complaints from the public, the NOPD employees, and from anonymous sources. The referral letters include our identification of possible accused employees and allegation violations, an analysis of any prior disciplinary history that may exist with those accused employees, and recommendations regarding those employees' assignment and supervision. Additionally, you can now learn more about the complaints that we submit to the Public Integrity Bureau by our office by looking at our new data dashboard that's available on our website. You can find that at complaints.nolaipm.gov/data. And starting in 2022, pursuant to the City Council ordinance, we provide this complaint data to City Council directly on a monthly basis, and we do appreciate that opportunity to share our work. This year, we also started a new practice of providing real-time policy recommendation letters to the NOPD leadership. Now, these are formal recommendations that are about practice, policy within force and misconduct investigation, and supervision. Frequently, these recommendation letters are attached or are associated with a pending misconduct investigation. And it's an opportunity for the NOPD to receive our assessments while the investigation is still occurring. And so that enables them to make changes to their investigation, to be able to consider new approaches, or to be able to adopt recommendations and to solve problems proactively instead of waiting until the end of an investigation for us to be able to provide our assessments or to say, this is what you could have done differently. This truly is a collaborative approach, and it's one that's resulted in better misconduct investigations and the resolution of errors that could affect the strength of a misconduct investigation, which will influence their ability to be upheld on appeal. So I just want to highlight some examples of some of these recommendation letters, and they are available on our website, but these are some that are not associated with any misconduct investigation. We submitted one recently regarding use of force review board determinations, encouraging the use of force review board to use uniform and consistent findings whenever they meet to assess use of force incidents. We also submitted a formal recommendation letter about the possibility of the NOPD deputizing or involving themselves in the Royal Street Patrol. And to be clear, our office had a lot of concerns about the possibility of the Royal Street Patrol receiving policing responsibilities through the NOPD. And so we communicated those concerns to the NOPD leadership directly. And we also attached to it the letter of concern that was shared by the New Orleans Cultural and MACNO. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on their full name. But we were able to provide the recommendations directly from performers, artists, and culture bearers and musicians that would also be affected by the Royal Street Patrol. We also use these recommendation letters to identify conflict issues in misconduct investigations, the need for PIB liaisons whenever investigations are sent out to other bureaus for investigation, and the way that allegations are selected to ensure consistency and to combat any appearance of favoritism. Now, I want to be clear, we consistently provide real-time recommendations and feedback to the NOPD. We do this all the time, every day. However, these formal letters are different and a new form of work product that we started this year. We wanted to formalize the recommendations, particularly in novel or high-profile investigations, and increase the transparency around our recommendations, show to the public and to our partners what it is that we're doing and how we are playing a part in making the NOPD better. We want to hold the NOPD accountable to the recommendations that are being made and track how our recommendations are being implemented to be able to see if we are running effectively as an agency. In 2022, we conducted 18 community police mediations through our community police mediation program that we run. We also led 10 in-service trainings for the mediators. We advised multiple offices across the country about mediation programs and mediation policy. And we put forth a series of recommendations to the NOPD about how to expand our mediation program, and I will address those recommendations later in this presentation. The OIPM attended now, as of today, 55 disciplinary hearings this year. The OIPM provides recommendations during these disciplinary hearings for officers, and we provide recommendations and assessments on issues related to the investigation, the allegations that were selected, the consistency of the disciplinary actions being considered, and any other mitigating or aggravating factors that may exist under NOPD policy. We stay in the room during the deliberations, and though we are a non-voting member, we are a vital part of the disciplinary action and the analysis that comes out of those hearings. This year, we launched a new, easier to navigate website, and we posted more of our work product and our data on this website for the public to access. Now, this website project was a long-standing recommendation that we received from our Quality Assurance Review Advisory Committee, and we were very happy to be able to finally execute on this project. This year, we also continued to build our social media presence, and we did this with the intent to build out the ability for the public, for the NOP, engage with us virtually, and to be able to get vital information about our office from our social media platforms and from our website. And we've received very positive feedback on our website. This year, we completed 3 reports on oversight. The first one was our 2022 work plan, which was released to the public, the NOPD, the mayor, the ethics review board, who we report to, and to city council. Our work plan, which was released in January, was our game plan, our roadmap for the year. And I'm happy to say that we were able to execute on many of the goals that were outlined in January. The chance to address a lot of misinformation that occurred during Hurricane Ida, to reflect on lessons learned from that storm, and to be able to discuss how we want the police to interact with the public, both during storms and in the immediate recovery process. Based on the public feedback we received, we were able to complete our oversight report and change the way that we assess the NOPD's performance during storms. And I will say we're very happy we didn't have to utilize that so far this year during the hurricane season. We also completed our annual report, which included data on use of force, misconduct, discipline, mediation, outreach, and for the first time ever, we looked at civil service appeals of NOPD discipline. In 2022, we were able to monitor 9 use of force scenes. So our office is on call 24 hours a day, every day of the year for any officer involved shooting or critical incident. Our office receives a call immediately from dispatch, and we're out on the scene monitoring every investigatory step that happens. So we were out there when there was an officer involved shooting on the Lafitte Greenway. We were at the scene of all the officer involved vehicle pursuits. We were monitoring the scene of the shooting that occurred during the U.S. Marshal operation, apprehending an individual. And we were on scene during the shooting of a dog after the dog fatally attacked a toddler. So at these scenes, we monitor the investigation that is occurring. We receive a walkthrough of the scene where there was kind of a reenactment of what happened. And we observe all evidence collection and witness statements. We then follow those matters as they travel through the process to the Use of Force Review Board. This year, there were 9 Use of Force Review Board cases that were heard by the board. Again, our office is a non-voting member, but we do provide input and recommendations regarding the findings of authorized or unauthorized uses of force. This year, so far, we're happy to announce that we have conducted and participated in 106 outreach events. This includes reporting quarterly to City Council pursuant to the new City Council ordinance. And again, we appreciate the opportunity. We started hosting coffees with the IPM, and we held our first one in the 7th Ward and our second one in New Orleans East. We also started a new model that we kind of looked to the district attorney's office and opening their satellite office in New Orleans East, and we followed suit, and we're now hosting office hours that are in public spaces in Algiers, the lower 9th Ward, and New Orleans East. These are office hours that are available for the public to be able to engage with our office in different neighborhoods of the city to ensure that we're as accessible as possible. We also now co-lead the public forums on the consent decree with the Federal Monitor's Office, and those are held about the status of the consent decree and will be held monthly moving forward. And just last week, we held a 2-day event to mark the National Day Against Police Brutality as an opportunity for us to be able to reflect and to be able to make a plan forward to reduce officer-involved violence. So now, moving on to the second part of our presentation, we are looking at our funding categories. And what we mean by funding categories is that we kind of clumped our funding categories into goals that we have in 2023. And those goals that we have are to build our misconduct and force investigatory work, to build out our misconduct audit and data work, and to expand our community impact. So I will say before we start getting into how we intend to achieve these goals, that this is going to be a first for us. We're coming before City Council, and we are going to be asking for additional money than we've received before. So under ordinance, we receive 0.16% of the general budget. But after evaluating what our budgetary goals are and what our goals for the office are, so evaluating what we need to be and what we need to achieve for the public and for the NOPD in order to fulfill our statutory obligations, we determined that we do require additional funding. So when we look at our funding categories, we are also thinking about what work streams do we need to develop to be able to achieve these budgetary goals. This is just a high-level summary of some of the work streams and some of the projects that we would need to take on to be able to achieve our goals in developing these audit and data teams, investigatory and review teams, and to expand our community impact. And they include work streams and projects such as hiring data and auditing staff, developing a public-facing database, building out our ability to have data access through an RFP, creating our sustainment and audit strategy, looking forward to the possible end of the consent decree, completing relevant and timely audits and reports, hiring a team to be able to conduct necessary investigations and case review reports, to create an investigatory model and an investigatory plan that is going to be able to be upheld legally when challenged on appeal. We want to conduct more relevant and timely investigations and case review reports. We also want to complete our 24-hour hotline project, open remote intake sites, continue our community office hours, and create more opportunities for public forums and engagement with the community. We would also like to build out a community collaboration committee based on a model that we saw be very successful in Cincinnati. So as we said, in order to achieve these goals, we looked at our budget in terms of building our team, prioritizing investigation, audit, review, and data capacity, and increasing community accessibility and impact. And that's how I will break out our budgetary requests. First, it's important that we build out our team. So the Office of the Independent Police Monitor is a very small team. We employ 6 full-time staff members, and this organizational chart does not include mediators or contractors. And by contractors, I mean we have 1 this year. In 2022, our leadership team stabilized. I was formally appointed as the Independent Police Monitor, and Bonsil Shokumbi was finalized as our Deputy Independent Police Monitor. So now that our leadership team has been finalized, we're looking to the rest of the team to try to build it out to ensure that we can achieve all the new responsibilities that may be requested of our office to be able to conduct investigations, complete more reports, and complete the audits that will be required of us during the sustainment period of the consent decree. So we wanted to be able to provide a look backwards when looking at our staffing. So that way we would be able to describe why we needed to build out the team in the way that we needed to build out a team. So in the past, we used language like we're at full capacity. When we use that term, we're at full capacity, we were saying that we were relying very heavily on the work done for us by contract attorneys and contractors. So we couldn't rely on that model anymore moving forward. Relying on contractors to complete work means that our ability to access those individuals is very inconsistent. There isn't a lot of stability within the team. You're not able to develop the relationships and the consistent work product that is required of our office. In the last few years, we've been under some constant change. Again, I'll highlight the change in leadership. We had a loss of longtime staff, and we had a reduction in contractors just in general. And taking a look back at what we used to consider a full capacity office made us realize where we really need to go. And it's that we need consistency in our team. We need to build a team that can sufficiently carry the responsibilities expected of us while the NOPD transitions out of the consent decree. And the way that our office operated in 2010 and in the years afterwards is just not sufficient with the advancements in policing and oversight and the knowledge that we are going to eventually exit the consent decree and lose any of the work that was being conducted by the federal monitors. Simply put, our community and all of our partners in this work deserve better from us, and we want to make that happen. So this is how we propose doing that. We have an excess in the budget, and we've had positions open for over a year at this point. And we do need to go back to civil service for an adjustment to either the pay or the experience level to be able to ensure that we can fill all of these positions. We have on here, for example, a data position, and we spent the last year trying to hire for this position and we're unable to. We require a very experienced data person simply because our data person is going to be acting in a solo capacity. We won't have a strong data team or supervisor to train this individual. Now, we are looking to collaborate with other data consultants and organizations, especially at the beginning of this individual's tenure. And we want to have an experienced person that can hit the ground running. And while we work with these other partners, be trained by those partners, and then eventually be able to take over this work on their own. So looking at our org chart, we really want to draw a comparison to kind of how an emergency room operates. There's long waits, delays in our work, and truthfully, there's a lot of triaging. We're not able to provide the necessary and valuable work that we're required to provide because we just don't have the capacity. So we've evaluated our work processes and our product, and in the process of revamping we're in the process of revamping to ensure that we're as efficient as possible. For example, we determined where we can have the largest impact and what is truly going to be the most bang for our buck. And that's highlighted here in this org chart. And this is why we're prioritizing things like data and auditing. And it's because we're being asked by City Council, the public, NOPD, and truthfully everyone, more and more about the patterns and practices and trends of policing in this city. And that's lost whenever we're doing our individualized memos and our individualized reviews. Sure, we can make some large, big picture conclusions from what might be happening on an individual basis, but we really need the ability to answer larger, bigger questions about policing. Where is it successful? Where is it struggling? And how can it improve? And we can't do that unless we have a data and auditing team. So second, we're going to move on to talking about how we can achieve our budgetary and work goals. And the second way we can do that is by prioritizing investigation, audit, review, and data capacity. So this coming year, we're going to be building out our data auditing and technology work and implementation. We are going to be starting a RFP for approximately $250,000. And we believe this will be an RFP that will be executed for around 3 years. Our goal with this RFP is to build out our ability to access NOPD data without any type of influence or appearance of influence, to develop our own data analysis from that data, to be able to assess critically the value and strength of NOPD's data, and then provide feedback to them so they can strengthen their data. I just want to highlight that this is something that you're going to see that police oversight is considering across the country. Just today, Miami, our partners in Miami, announced that they were able to release a report saying that the majority of body-worn camera violations that were happening in Miami were occurring disproportionately in African-American districts. So they were able, through their data collection, to say that 62% of the violations in their body-worn camera footage was occurring in just one district, District 5. And that district only had 20% of Miami's residents. So that's a pretty incredible conclusion for them to be able to make. We would like to be able to provide similar information to City Council, to the NOPD, and to the public. This is important conclusions to be able to draw. We want to be able to notice those patterns and to be able to see these possible problems, because this will very much speak to the ability for the NOPD, say, to be able to stay compliant with stop, search, and arrest, or to stay compliant with bias-free policing, which are two questions that are now being asked in Miami that we are unable to ask here because we simply don't have the data or the ability to do that type of work. Now, I highlighted some of the data that we are able to release to the public that we're releasing on a live function on our website. And we are able to provide a lot of vital information, but again, it's about internally generated complaints, the complaints that are coming to us. There is nothing that is provided in those charts that is about what is going to the NOPD, what is being developed by the NOPD, or what is happening within the NOPD. This is a huge missed opportunity. And it's going to be extraordinarily important once we lose the federal monitors and all of this falls on our office to be able to answer these questions. And it is vital that we have our own data access. We are an independent agency, and we don't want to be influenced or even have the perception of influence, the question of influence from the agency that we are tasked with monitoring. Additionally, we have different data goals from the NOPD. So we understand and we respect and we applaud the data goals that NOPD is putting forward that the NOPD discussed yesterday. But we need to be clear that our goals are different from theirs. Our goal is to, so their goal is to track policing activity, but for us, it's to be able to answer larger questions about what that police activity means and where it is being disproportionately applied. We're tasked with evaluating the accuracy, the strength, and the value of NOPD's data. So that means that our data can't actually be the same. It can't come from the same source. We have to have the ability to have independent data for our conclusions to have the value that is required of it. We're also going to be building out our investigation and accountability work. So we want to increase our role in our investigation and accountability, particularly in the Office of Police Secondary Employment. And this is a legal requirement of our office under Louisiana State Revised Statute 33:2339. Additionally, there's always the possibility that there will be additional city council ordinances that may expand our investigatory responsibilities regarding NOPD as well. And if this was to occur, we would need to hire investigators and train those individuals on how to conduct both criminal and administrative investigations. We also want to increase our audit capacity and our consent decree compliance. And so what we mean by that is that we need to be able to conduct more audits and reviews to be able to prepare for the compliance that might eventually happen with the consent decree. We need to expand our role with the Professional Standards and Accountability Bureau within the NOPD. And we intend to do that with the assistance of the federal consent decree monitors. We're in the process of writing our own sustainment strategy, and it was submitted to the federal monitors, and we are submitting it to the NOPD for early comment and feedback. Now, we won't be able to complete the tasks that will be required under this sustainment strategy without additional technology, data capacity, and staff. So we're anticipating that a team of 2 auditors will cost the OIPM a little over $200,000, and that is including fringe benefits. The OIPM also intends to send those auditors to the LAPD audit school, and the LAPD audit school is considered like the best in the country. And I had the honor of attending, and I want to make sure that our auditors would have the opportunity to be able to learn from this incredible program. They truly are a national leader in this field. And that training would be approximately $1,500 a person, and that depends on flights and accommodations. We think it's important that we do this work, but it's also important that we find ways to communicate this work to the public. And that's why we are prioritizing the creation of a public-facing database. So we want to continue to work with City Council on Resolution 2175 for the police misconduct database. And we want to find new ways to produce and share out more policing and oversight data. So prior, the budget was projected at around $100,000 for this project, and we would like to take over as the project manager for this potential RFP to be able to make this project a reality. And included, those two pictures are mock-ups that we developed of how this database would look for the public, and we already shared these mock-ups with NOPD. The third way that we intend to follow through on our budgetary goals is to increase community accessibility and impact. So we've talked a lot this year about our goal of creating a 24-hour hotline for allegations of police misconduct. And I'm happy to say that RFP went out. We received bids from vendors, and now we're in the final steps of hopefully selecting our vendor to be able to finally complete this project. This project will cost approximately $12,000 a year. This hotline is going to be more than a hotline. It's going to have 24-hour hotline capacity, yes, but it's going to be available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. It's also going to have a web submission component, a text submission component, and we're going to be able to receive more data from this hotline to be able to communicate out to the public how we anticipate, like where we see complaints coming from, what the grounds of those complaints are, and how the NOPD can improve to be able to address those concerns. In 2022, we also would like to open remote intake sites. In 2022, the OIPM developed all of the materials needed, including MOU agreements, all of the training materials, the manuals, the signs, the forms, everything that we would need to be able to open remote intake sites. We've already started talking to some organizations about being remote intake sites for our office. And the feedback that we are receiving from those organizations is that we are asking them to take on something that they may not have the financial capacity to take on. And so we are going to be exploring whether or not this is something that might involve us having to supplement aspects of that work to ensure that these remote intake sites are able to receive complaints of officer misconduct. For example, we would like to partner with organizations like that work with our transgender community, our Spanish-speaking community, and our Vietnamese-speaking community, all of which tend to historically underreport crime and underreport officer misconduct out of the desire to just not engage with law enforcement. It makes those populations easy targets for potential misconduct. And that is why it's so vital that we form these partnerships to be able to ensure that there is a trusted organization that already has credibility within those communities to be able to be a safe place to receive complaints of officer misconduct. We also intend to develop out our mediation program and to utilize our mediation skills in new innovative ways. So we have submitted a proposal to expand our community police mediation program, and we're expanding it to include a role in the internal NOPD grievance process and to offer mediation to certain departments or units for the public. So for example, one of our ideas is to offer mediation services to create communication plans for crime survivors and detectives assigned to sexual assault cases. So that way a trained mediator can help an individual who is a sexual assault survivor, work with their detective, and have a communication plan that clearly lays out when they'll receive updates, how they should be able to reach the detective, and what are the most effective ways to communicate. And I highlight this just because that's an area where we consistently receive complaints. And so we can utilize our mediation program to get on the front end and proactively solve that problem. So currently the OIPM budgets for 50 mediations a year, with each mediator receiving a small fee. It's like a stipend of $75 a mediation, which ends up being $150 a mediation because there's 2 mediators in every mediation. The OIPM intends to increase the number of mediations as part of this expansion, which will increase the cost of the program. Also, I want to highlight that our mediation director is going to be teaching a weekly course at NOPD's Academy on active listening skills to the new leaders within the department. And this will come out of the mediation program, and it will also involve trained mediators. So there may be, again, more increases to the cost of the program. Finally, we do want to expand our community office hours, public forums, and opportunities for community engagement. We are in talks with different community engagement consultants about possibly outsourcing some of that work. In the past, we did hire full-time staff to take on that work. We are trying to take on that work ourselves, but that means that if we're out there doing that work, then we're not in the office doing other work. So we are trying to find ways to balance all of that out. So finally, we will close with just a budget recap. These charts provide some basic numbers on our budget. I do want to highlight in the 2023 budget request that total is a typo, and I do sincerely apologize for it, but the correct amount is in the templates that we submitted to City Council. It is basically $1.7 million. And on the next slide, you're able to see our full-time employee charts, the ones that were classified, unclassified, and approved, filled, and vacant in 2022, and our proposed full-time employees for 2023. So again, we thank the City Council for this opportunity for us to be able to talk about our work, our goals, and our anticipated and requested budget for 2023. We welcome any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you. I appreciate the chairman letting me go first. He knows I have to go pick up my kids. I'll be very brief. I think it's important for us to let the public be aware of a simple fact. As the police department exits the consent decree, in my conversations with our federal partners, they are anticipating that Office of Police Monitor is going to be monitoring an OPD during the sustainment period. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
More or less.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think it's important when you're looking at a budget like this, considering how much we pay the federal consent monitors currently, this is quite the discount to have an actual homegrown organization that has a proven relationship with the community, that has a proven reputation, both with individuals in the community organizations, and even police officers, with being fair and unbiased in your evaluations. I think it's important that as a council, we invest on building you up to continue to grow and expand with that, because everyone is hoping that at some point in the future, we exit the consent decree. And I think in my conversations, like I've had with our federal partners, the success of building you guys up is part of making the case as to when and how we exit the consent decree. Because obviously, from their perspective, they do not want NOPD to backslide, and an improperly funded, not supported IPM will give them pause on whether or not we as a city are ready to exit the consent decree. So I appreciate the work you've been doing. I mentioned to my colleagues earlier, you guys provided the most detailed budget breakdown of what positions you're funding in your pre-brief before today's meeting. We appreciate that. I think that it's so important for people in the city to feel like there's an advocate and a partner who will meet them where they are to help rebuild confidence in our police department, because you guys are part of, by making things fair, by making things accessible, by making people feel agency and that they have control over the department that they fund, it really builds faith in the community that there can be a relationship. So I appreciate all the work you've done. I appreciate your thorough presentation, and I look forward to working with y'all and getting this done. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Green.
I'd like to also thank you for your presentation, and I think that it's important for the citizens to remember that citizens created the the Office of Independent Monitoring. I've been to a couple of meetings where I want to applaud you for your coolness in the midst of fire, and I got to say that I'm confused by why so many people are confused. This was brought before voters, and I think that you've done a fine job in providing independent police monitoring, and the word is independent. The emphasis is on that, but you still have a working relationship with the New Orleans Police Department where you get information that you need. They provide the information. There's no true controversy unless you kind of let us know behind the scenes, but it seems that you're getting much of the information. It doesn't necessarily lead to the conclusion that maybe some others want to have, but the bottom line is that you're in a difficult position, and I do recognize that as we leave the consent decree, our citizens will want to know that there is an independent monitor overlooking police operations. And I say that because I want the public to know that, because I've been to a couple of meetings where there's just so much confusion sometimes, and it seems that people don't recognize that your office is created to give them exactly what they want. Oversight that is independent. And so thank you for your coolness in the midst of a couple of things that I've seen. I'd also like to ask you, talk to me about PCABs and what their relationship is to your office and how it can work a little bit better.
Right now, our office does not have really a strong relationship with the PCABs. Bonsil might weigh in more because in her prior position, she was working directly with the PCABs.
And so I've had the opportunity this year, I can't remember the gentleman's name, to speak with him several times. I believe he's out of the Office of Neighborhood Engagement, who has been working to see about the stability of the PCABs. In 2018 and 19, I did go to all of the PCAB meetings to monitor them and see their compliance with the consent decree, and also provided that feedback to the federal monitors. We do not have an official relationship with them, as they're not ran out of the New Orleans Police Department and they're run out of the mayor's office, but we have offered our services to them. I attend them to hear the feedback that the community is providing, because oftentimes there are things that the PCABs may not be able to take care of that our office might be utilized. If there's issues that are happening in the community that can't be addressed maybe, or aren't successfully being addressed by NOPD, that's somewhere where we want to step in, provide that recommendation in a formalized and professional manner, and hope to be able to accomplish the things in that nature. And so PCAB's role is limited. It's pretty specific on what they can do. They can do a lot. And I believe that PCABs and everyone has spoken out that they weren't utilized as much in the past. And we're hoping to see in the future that they are utilized a little bit more, and the voice of the community is heard through them, because that function is there for the people.
How many PCABs actually are meeting regularly?
I believe they're all meeting
All
now.
meeting? Good. On a
Yes, they
monthly-
were
monthly basis?
largely defunct during the pandemic, but all of them are meeting now, is my understanding.
Good. So I'd like you to feel free to share information, and I guess I would like to, I'm going to share information as to when the PCABs meet, because I think that's an opportunity for members of the community to, to share information in addition to sharing information with you. And I don't think that enough people know that they exist.
And if anyone is interested in the PCABs, they do post their schedules on the city website. And I checked last week, and they're up to date through the rest of the year. And they also have the contact information for the presidents and other officers of each PCAB for every district.
Good. Appreciate what you all do. We'll give strong considerations to your request for the additional resources that will help you as we move out of the consent decree into the position where your role of your office is even expanded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to ask about the database because it was my resolution to work to create it. So it looks like from your presentation that you will take over as project manager for this potential RFP in order to complete this project. What's the timeline?
So I believe that we just need to legally make sure that we can do that. And then once we can, we have an RFP already written, and we have a mock-up already kind of created with some ideas of what we're looking for. So it would be just a matter of getting the RFP out there, giving the vendors the appropriate amount of time to be able to submit. I believe from our conversations that we had that we were anticipating that building of the actual database could potentially take like 6 months.
Mhm.
But the real issue is going to be the data access.
Mhm.
So as long as there's that data pipeline,
Mhm.
once it's built, then it would stay live and it would be able to auto populate. The issue is going to be whether or not that pipeline will be built.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of that might depend. I know NOPD is in the process of utilizing Hexagon, and there was talk of it being finalized maybe in May. So there might be some start and stops while we wait for NOPD to finish their work that they're doing
Mhm.
to then be able to implement that tool on top of it.
So
But
it's not really like an access. It's really about making sure that that pipeline gets to you, right?
right,
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I just want to make sure that no one was trying to restrict your access to this information.
I don't think that it's an issue of restriction. It's just that we don't have it.
Yeah.
We just don't have the access. And so it makes getting the information extremely difficult, which can feel like restriction.
Mhm.
But my understanding is that NOPD leadership is coming to the table and understands the importance of us having the access.
Yeah. Let me know what the council can do to assist with that. But just so I understand, first you have, before you can put the RFP out, who has to make that determination on whether or not you can take this project over?
I think the issue is just that it's not our money.
Mm.
So it would just be, how do we do an RFP for something like the $100,000 isn't in our budget?
Whose budget is it in?
I'm not sure. So I think it's in city council's budget, but I'm not sure where that $100,000 is.
All right, well, let's find the 100,000 and then figure out a path to put it into your
Right.
budget.
Yeah,
Remember,
yeah, because
Morel is gone. We'll just dip into his salary.
We're just gonna, right,
yeah, so just again,
Yeah.
take that little dip and then we're
yeah,
good.
exactly,
But
perfect.
as soon as we figure out who has the money and then who has, like, we just didn't know if we're allowed to release an RFP for something that,
It's not necessarily in your budget.
yeah, not exactly our budget.
All right, well, we will look into that and the chair knows to look into that as well. So, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Stella, can I ask you a few questions? First is you had 106 community meetings this year. That is an impressive number. Is that with your staff of 3 people? Did you all attend
6
them?
people,
6
six
people
people.
attended 106 meetings.
yes.
I'm looking at all of my colleagues because I get really frustrated when, where I'm headed is utilities tell us we can't, DPW, sewage and water board, energy, and they're much bigger than 6 people.
Yeah.
So really hats off to y'all. I mean, that number really stuck out to me a whole lot. Two very quick things in terms of expenses. It looks like you have 3 vacancies right now.
Right.
If we build out your budget, you go to 8. Are you worried about if you're at 3, not being able to get to that 8 number?
Sorry.
Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah.
Sure. So the question is, right now you have 3 vacancies.
Right.
And then if you get all of your additional proposed FTEs, 5 new positions, you'll be at 8 vacancies. I guess what I just want to be careful about is appropriating money for positions when there's already existing vacancies.
Right.
What, am I not understanding something correctly?
No, so we do have 3 vacancies, but it's kind of strategic on our behalf right now. We don't have enough money to fill all 3 vacancies right now. And so we don't want to put a person in like our chief monitor or misconduct analyst position when the priority is really data. So we haven't had a quality data candidate. So we're not moving forward on the other things if we get that. If we are provided the funds for all 8, then we can open the positions for all 8. And I believe that we'll be able to fully fill them and operate at full staff.
I also want to highlight, thank you, Bunsen. I also want to highlight that some of these positions will be dependent on certain responsibilities getting expanded. So if we aren't given certain investigatory responsibilities by, say, city council or whoever, then that's going to be backburned because we're not going to hire an investigator to conduct no investigations. So there is some, again, like strategic decisions that are being made about how to how to use our money. And then the other question is, if we were to hire all of these people, where would we fit them? So we are looking at whether or not we should move to a larger office, but we're not going to move to a larger office unless we have the staff. So it's like the chicken before the egg. Like we don't, because we're not going to let ourselves have empty offices. That's a waste of taxpayer dollars.
No, it is. I guess I just want to make sure that we get everything right, aligned. I mean, I
Right.
think what you're hearing from those of us who remain is about wanting to make sure you're funded and funded properly, but at the same time, and this isn't y'all, it's just other agencies. There have been so much funding and then we fund them and then there's this huge surplus. So I want to kind of make sure maybe we talk a little bit more about what is the right, maybe initial funding, and then seeing where your powers are and then coming back for the rest of the funding.
Yeah, and that might be something that we need to consider is a phased approach based on what the statutory responsibilities are of our office.
And how much more do you need to fill the current 3 positions that are unfilled right now?
Oh, gosh. Do we-
Back of the, I keep on saying back of the envelope, so that'll be
Yeah,
my theme today.
So,
Somewhere around, I can do the math one
Yeah.
second. 15, 70, approximately another $200,000 just for the other two.
Got it. Okay, all right. Well, and then Stella, maybe what we can do is talk about, somewhere between the 200,000 and the whole ask. That way you can start and getting things ramped up. And then when we get closer to the powers part, have that discussion and then do everything else. Because I think Councilmember Morel also makes a good point about you all are a necessary leg of the stool when it comes to the sustainment period
right,
of the consent decree, and we want to make sure from both a perception and an actual standpoint that you all have what you need. And then my last question is this: have your office been in contact with the administration? Because we're asking each of the criminal justice agencies about having an integrated data sharing system. Everybody sat at this table and said yes. My anticipation is juvenile court and others will say yes too, but you all have to be able to peer into those numbers into a certain way. So has there been discussion about having what you need to be able to look at data and make sure that you're able to capture what you're interested in?
so our needs are going to be a little different than what I think is, unless the shared data is going to include matters that are also pending and matters that are getting changed on a live basis, our data needs are going to be different than what I believe is going to be achieved through the integrated system, which is going to be able to provide very strong ideas of what is done, but maybe not what's underway.
Okay,
We would need more information to be able to answer whether or not that's going to be able to provide the services that we want to provide. The other thing is that I don't know if that integrated system is going to include use of force data
right.
and misconduct data. It might include like field identification cards, arrests,
Mhm.
and other forms of police activity.
Right.
So I guess I would just need more clarity about what's going to be included in it before I can say for certain.
And I just also want to say that one of the requirements for us is to have backend access to NOPD's data. And so
Right.
that's not just sharing and everything to connect, which I do think is important. I think our office would support, but separate and apart, we need to be able to see the back end of misconduct and force, which is a huge issue that we've been facing the last couple of years.
Yeah, I guess I agree. I mean, where maybe a bad way of saying it is, I think not only do you need access both to what's publicly facing, and then what I don't want to have happen is, well, now that you have this data that's publicly facing, you're making our life harder by the things that are on the back end too.
Right.
So I think for all of our purposes, we want to be very clear about what you are entitled to. And I guess as we're looking at what the powers look like going forward, then I think we need to be very clear about what OIPM has the scope of looking into.
And I definitely think this is an ongoing conversation that we would be very open to meeting with city council again to be able to describe what type of data access and what type of usability we would require, because when we say backend access, a lot of this is like view only, or the ability to be able to access like basically like a replicate database or warehouse to be able to then run the reports and the analysis that we need to run. We're not proposing that we would have a admin ability to change, which I know is always something that is a big concern. And we also, it's paramount that anything that we access we can assure everyone involved that it is going to be as treated with the utmost need for security. So those types of systems and access might be costly, which is another thing that we're anticipating.
Okay, well, the one thing I keep on hearing is that we're gonna come back and evaluate everything on a quarterly basis.
Right.
And also just candidly, from our perspective, it's helpful to hear as early as possible about this is where things are going well, these are where things could maybe be operating slightly more efficiently, and then this is a pinch point, we need to fix this. So we're
Of course,
ready for all of that. Councilmember Green, do you have something?
I'm sorry, can you talk to the public about how you fill those jobs?
about how we will fill them.
Yes, just where do they go to find out about it and what qualifications?
So a lot of those positions are going to be posted on civil service and be posted through civil service. We have also historically posted positions on Indeed, our social media platforms, and have sent them out through listservs to all of our coalition partners.
Okay,
We also put them on our website. So if there's anyone watching this stream who's interested in
Thousands
working
of
for
people.
us, yes, please go to our social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, go to our website. We post the links to those jobs. Just call our office. I mean, honestly, and if there's anyone out there with data experience that wants to do very important data work out of passion and a desire to serve, and maybe they're independently wealthy, then great, come, because our budget
that's a
is
pretty good commercial. Right,
I will say also feel free to email our office at policemonitor@nolaipm.gov. Even if you just saw something on the presentation that you're interested in, we're open to having conversations with people and building the team accordingly.
okay, thank you very much.
I just want to give one note because I heard the statement of the concern about surplus. There is surplus in our 2022 budget and there was surplus before, and that's simply because of large changes in leadership and staffing. But there's not a surplus just simply because we failed to fill positions. But when you lose the police monitor and things of that nature, you're going to end up with a large amount of money at the end of the year.
We used to have a leadership team of 3 people that were receiving the highest salaries. We're now a leadership team of 2.
Okay. All right, well, okay, I get it. All right, well, that sounds good. I mean, again, I think it's why I appreciate your saying that and out loud. And then again, that's why we have the check-ins too, to kind of see
Mhm.
where people are and put our fingers up in the air. We have one online comment. Mr. Shy, will you please read that? And then I think we will wrap up for the day.
So this is the only online comment. It comes from Joan Garner. The comment reads, I want to state that there is a need for the Office of Independent Police Monitor in New Orleans and whatever their budget requests are to support their work. I state this as a person whose parents were falsely arrested by NOPD in 1994. The police officer that used force and pointed his gun at my father, in which we believe orchestrated the false arrest involving a SWAT team, was drug tested the following day of the false arrest. He tested positive for amphetamine and methamphetamine. That officer quietly resigned and my family suffered the consequences of these life-changing and traumatizing circumstances. We do know that there were corrupt police and a corrupt police department in 1994, as has been admitted recently by former Mayor Mark Morial. The matter went to PIB and they found nothing wrong as they are a part of the police department, a police department with a history of corruption. Had there been an independent police monitor, there would have existed an agency to address what the police department was unwilling to address. The issue still exists today, which reinforces the need for an independent police monitor. There is also a need to address the wrongs of the past through a Truth and Reconciliation Commission and other such measures. That completes the comment.
Thank you, Mr. Shy. Do you all have any closing comments?
Nope.
All right. So we will be off tomorrow for council meeting. We can debate what's more exciting at council.
I'm about to say, you call that off.
Yeah, right. We'll be off.
Okay.
We'll be off for tomorrow.
Isn't
off. That's right. And then council meeting tomorrow on Friday. We will have Office of Secondary Employment, New Orleans Fire Department, EMS, Health Department, Homeland Security, Emergency Preparedness. Thank you to everybody for your participation today.
All right, thank you very much.
Council meeting.